They were the hungrier team. I thought that they played with a relentless, effort, a relentless pursuit to get to what they wanted, to be disruptive on defense, to get to their spots on offense. I thought their competitive spirit was better than ours. I don't know if foul trouble has a lot to do with rotations. I think it's just anticipation. I think it's activity, anticipation, and awareness. We talk about our 3 A's all the time: active, aware, and anticipate. Minutes restriction. So she's coming out. And typically that's around the same time that we've been taking Caitlin out before. We didn't in Golden State just because, quite honestly, we didn't Raven in that environment without another ball handler on the floor. So that's been our typical substitution pattern.
There's a moment in every NBA or WNBA season where one substitution becomes the story. Not the final score, not the box score. One decision, maybe 30 seconds of action, and suddenly an entire coaching staff is on trial. That moment happened in Indiana. Game 8 of the 2026 WNBA season. The Fever were actually winning, and then Stephanie White made a move that the internet will not let go of. 6 minutes and 30 seconds left in the first quarter. Indiana had the lead. Things were going fine. White pulled Caitlin Clark, Lexi Hull, and Aliyah Boston off the floor at the same time. What followed was a collapse so fast it almost felt cinematic. Portland didn't just take the lead. They outscored Indiana by 14 points before the quarter even ended. A lead became a 29-15 deficit in what felt like the blink of an eye. The expansion Portland Fire, a brand new franchise, had just dismantled the Fever in a single quarter. And Indiana never recovered, losing by 16. Now here's the thing. White came out after the game and explained herself. She said the substitutions were routine. Load management. Being proactive about protecting two of her most important players early in a long season. Completely standard coaching logic, especially with 44 games on the calendar and the season still in its infancy. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't sending a message. She was just coaching. And yet, nobody wants to hear that right now. Because when you coach Caitlin Clark, the margin for public patience is basically non-existent. Every decision gets examined under a microscope. Every lineup change becomes a narrative. Every sideline exchange gets clipped, slowed down, and debated for 48 hours straight. That's the reality Stephanie White signed up for, and that reality showed up in full force after this loss. There's also this moment that fans latched onto. During the game, Clark and White had what looked like a pretty heated exchange on the sideline. You could see it, the body language, the back and forth, the disagreement. And then White turned around and called Raven Johnson over to sub Clark out. Whether that was the right move or not, whether it was part of a bigger strategic plan or just a moment of frustration, it doesn't matter. The clip went everywhere. The takes poured in. And suddenly the question isn't just about one loss. It's about whether this coaching relationship has cracks in it. That's the environment Stephanie White is operating in. And honestly, you have to feel some level of empathy for her situation, even as you hold her accountable. Think about what this job has become. When Christy Sides was coaching Indiana in 2024, she took that team to a .500 record and the franchise's first playoff appearance in nearly a decade. That hadn't happened since 2016. By any normal standard, that's progress. That's a foundation being built. But the scrutiny that came with Clark's arrival raised the bar so dramatically that a playoff berth wasn't enough. Sides was let go. The expectations had simply outgrown what she delivered. White stepped in and did something remarkable almost immediately. Clark went down with an injury. Most people would have written Indiana's season off at that point. Instead, White took a shorthanded Fever squad on a run that nobody predicted, all the way to the WNBA semifinals. Without their best player. That's not lucky coaching. That's preparation, adaptability, and culture. The kind of stuff that doesn't always show up in the highlight reel but absolutely shows up in the results. She also has a longer resume that deserves some context here. White's teams have reached the semifinals in 3 consecutive seasons when you account for her time with the Connecticut Sun before returning to Indiana. And if you want to go back even further, she was the head coach the last time the Fever made the WNBA Finals. That was 2015. The franchise hasn't been back since. She knows what it takes to build something that competes at the highest level. But none of that backstory insulates her from what's happening right now. Because right now it's Game 8. The season is barely off the ground. And the Fever just dropped 16 points to an expansion team while their best player was on the bench in the first quarter. That's the conversation, whether it's fair or not. Here's what makes Caitlin Clark such a complicated player to build around. On one hand, she is genuinely one of the most transformative athletes this league has ever seen. She changed television ratings. She changed ticket sales. She changed the way casual fans engage with women's basketball. The things she does with the ball in her hands are legitimately special. The range, the vision, the ability to create offense in ways that other players simply cannot. She makes the Fever must-watch television on a nightly basis. On the other hand, the defensive side of her game presents real, consistent challenges. Opposing coaches game plan around it every single night. They hunt her in switches. They run action after action designed to get the ball in front of her, isolate her, and make her pay. White has to constantly figure out how to limit exposure on that end without sacrificing what makes Clark so dangerous offensively. It's a daily puzzle with no clean answer. And when you get it wrong, or when something that looks like getting it wrong ends up on social media, you become the story instead of the team. That's where Stephanie White finds herself right now. She's a proven winner operating in an environment where proven doesn't really buy you much grace anymore. The Fever fanbase wants results. They want Clark happy. They want momentum. And they want to believe this team is being built the right way for a deep playoff run. A first-quarter substitution in early June might seem like a small thing to anchor a crisis narrative around. And objectively, it probably is. Good teams lose games. Good coaches make decisions that backfire. 8 games into a 44-game season is nowhere near enough data to draw. It's fair or not. Here's what makes Caitlin Clark such a complicated player to build around. On one hand, she is genuinely one of the most transformative athletes this league has ever seen. She changed television ratings. She changed ticket sales. She changed the way casual fans engage with women's basketball. The things she does with the ball in her hands are legitimately special. The range, the vision, the ability to create offense in ways that other players simply cannot. She makes the Fever must-watch television on a nightly basis. On the other hand, the defensive side of her game presents real, consistent challenges. Opposing coaches game plan around it every single night. They hunt her in switches. They run action after action designed to get the ball in front of her, isolate her, and make her pay. White has to constantly figure out how to limit exposure on that end without sacrificing.